with you today, Aakash, and this is going to be a great topic on digital supply chain. But before we start, can you provide a brief background of yourself?
Thank you, Dustin. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you on digital supply chain. Sure. Before I start, I'll give you a background. I am a supply chain professional through and through. Last 15 years, I've been working in supply chains across the globe. I started my career in India, working in the operations space for multinationals, managing their supply chains, and then I shifted into consulting. And I've worked almost all parts of supply chain except product life cycle and manufacturing. But I've dabbled in sourcing and procurement, planning and fulfillment, and after sales strategy, reverse logistics, etc. And in the last 2 years, I have moved to Barcelona, and now I live in Spain, and I'm driving some supply chain initiatives from here. Happy to be here talking to you.
Yes, and thanks for the intro. My first question is, what is digital supply chain?
That's an interesting question, actually. Digital supply chain. What is digital supply chain? Lately, the digital word is quite used or misused, probably. And when we say digital supply chain, so when somebody asks me this, I say there are two different types of digital supply chains. One is where the supply chain is completely digital, and that's happening in the media, communications, and now lately in the education industry, where the products are digital, the sales is digital, and the delivery is digital. So it's a complete digital supply chain happening in the digital world, which has been disrupted by all the big giants, Apple, Google, namely, and some others. But for the physical supply chains, digital supply chain also has a big impact, and that is because of the technologies which have emerged in recent years: analytics, robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data. They are having huge impacts on supply chains. Supply chain has been adopting technology over the times, but that's digitization. The processes were being converted into the digital space using technology. But now you are seeing a lot of data being generated by supply chain because of that digitization. Huge amounts of data. Supply chains every year are generating almost to the tune of data which is in zettabytes, and it's projected to grow more and more with IoT and devices coming into play in the supply chains. And so that creates a big shift from running a physical supply chain to a technology-enabled supply chain, and finally to a digital supply chain where a large portion of your supply chain exists in the digital world. And it's basically your physical and your technology supply chain or information supply chain have to mirror each other. Now you cannot say that they exist in separate streams. So they mirror each other and they come together, they fuse together to create a digital supply chain where there's full end-to-end visibility. There's the visibility gives you data, and using a lot of tools, you create insights, intelligence from there that helps you to execute faster. And the execution may not be always faster. Sometimes you have to slow down the speed as well. So that is the second type of digital supply chain. So these are the supply chains that I would say. And for major industries, for manufacturing industries, for automobiles, for product companies, those are the second type of digital supply chain is more and more important.
Can you talk more about why is the digital supply chain relevant now, and how it's different from the regular technology adoption?
Yeah, so over the years, as I said earlier, supply chains moved from, first there was a mainframe era, and then an internet came, and then ERPs were implemented, and then best of class solutions from warehouse management, TMS, etc. were started to being implemented to aid the supply chain managers for execution and planning and all. But now the supply chain managers is getting tons and tons of data. So big data is becoming a huge problem for the supply chain manager. The global expansion, you have your manufacturing plants all over the world, getting the products to a different market and getting them and selling them and making them reach the shelves. It's a big challenge. There's some statistics, for example, that the LCD or LED TVs that reach US shores, by the time they reach the port, 10 to 15% of them are already obsolete. So imagine the impact which creates, the value it's lost, the inventory lying in warehouses, and if it doesn't reach the customer, it's burning a hole in the pockets of the corporates. However, now the technology is there, the data is there, which can be harnessed, which can be used to take insights, used to extract information, and help the supply chain managers execute better and focus on more valued tasks. More and more with the data infiltration and the technology infiltration, more and more you can automate the standard tasks, do some automated decision making in the supply chain where supply chain managers don't have to look at those tasks every day. And they can focus on value tasks, and in the end they can help the supply chain transition from a cost centric organization or a cost centric function in the corporate to a value centric, where they are driving more and more value. So because of that, the digital supply chain becomes more important. This is from a execution or a internal standpoint, but from an external standpoint, your customers are becoming digital. It's the generation of digital customers which is coming more and more. So to manage them or to serve them, if your supply chains are not suited to serve your digital customers, then you're set up for failure. Companies like Apple and Amazon they are generating innovation. They are creating things every day to serve those digital customers, and this puts the onus back on other giants to see how they can align themselves to the priorities of the digital customers. So that's why digital supply chains are becoming more and more important these days.
Digital supply chains can be used in many places, especially the companies and consumer goods and retail industries. They need digital supply chains to serve to the digital customers. They can also take advantage of digital supply chains to create supply chains of one customer, basically serving big clusters of digital customers that have similar tastes. And that can be made possible only by the use of digital technologies and successfully not only integrating but evolving with the supply chains. So digital supply chains are very much relevant today. In terms of where they have been a success, it's been in pockets. So digital supply chains as of now are, as usual, evolving in silos, because that's how the supply chains have been in the past. But with the concepts like control towers or end-to-end visibility, and the emergence of analytics, which takes insights from big data across the different systems, is actually helping merge and integrate the full supply chain scope, right from sourcing till servicing to the customers. So I would say that digital supply chains is the future. The scope is growing really tremendously, and it's also being caused by the exogenous factors, which is primarily the emergence of digital customers. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.